Hi there, everyone. As again, a lot of you asked me that if I could start recording some stuff on our concepts that we cover, especially on the computer networks, and start putting them on YouTube. So here I am. So welcome to the first episode on our exciting video series. Again, I'm Gurpreet, and I'm thrilled to start this journey with you. And again, my intention again is just to help each one of you with basic concepts. As you know, I always say that it's best to keep your fundamentals and basics clear, uh, and we should not be overlooking them. As you're trying to build a career in computer networks, the better the foundation you have, the better chances you have to kind of grow in this field. Again, I do recognize value of your time. So again, my goal is to keep each and every video, in about 10 to 15 minutes, or even shorter in some cases. As again, the aim is just to, make sure that the delivery is done in such a way that it can be, digested in a very small segments. And again, before we start, diving into some, details of nitty-gritties, I would say, of computer networks, let's start with the basics, and answer the basic question where I say, what are computer networks? And then let's talk about the infamous OSI model. Again, whether if you're a total network, beginner in some cases, or if you're someone who's looking to brush up, just some things that you've already covered in a previous year, I'm hoping that this would still give you some value. And as you get ready, and again, the idea is that as we keep going on, I try to bring up on some advanced topics also, which are more relevant to your understanding of computer networks, and also when you're trying to look for those jobs, go for those interviews, again helping you with those ideas and topics as well. Okay, so again, let's start to answer the question: what are computer networks, or what are data networks? Right now, again, see, in this case, let's say a data network, it could be a product for a company, right? So again, network could be a product for a company, like let's say company like a Bell or a Rogers. They use networks, or they have networks where other companies are coming and using their data or using their networks to pass their own data, right? So in the case of Bell, Rogers, TELUS, really speaking, their network is their product, right? And then let's talk about enterprise networks in most cases, right? Now, again, doesn't matter what model of business you are in. You could be in finance, you could be in manufacturing, retail, higher education. Doesn't matter what it is, right? You still need a network to do whatever you're doing in terms of your business. And again, business today is as efficient as your network. That's how important the network has become, right? If somebody's trying to deliver something through their business, but if the network is not able to support it, the business cannot be successful today, right? So that is how much we are relying on our networks today. Now, what are the sizes of these networks? Again, right? Could be as big as, you know, thousands of devices, routers, switches, firewalls, could be as small as, just a small office with, just some internet, one small firewall, maybe a Wi-Fi access point behind it. As simple as that, right? Like somebody who's running an accounting firm, or doing some taxes for somebody, or anything like that, right? Or providing some sort of a, hardware store, or whatever that is. So again, it could vary, right? Now let's start jumping into the OSI model, right? Now everybody talks about OSI model. So before I jump into OSI model, I want to say, see, OSI model is an architecture. It's more like a guidelines that were given to us when we start developing or start understanding how networks work. So this is where I think we all should start. So we understand those OSI model layers, and then see each and every piece of the network, where does it fit and how does it work with the other pieces. Then when everything starts to make more sense to you, right? Uh, so again, let's talk about this. Again, as we know, the OSI model really, how does it work is it has physical, data, network, transport, session, presentation, and application. Again, in today's world, really speaking, we all talk about the bottom four, starting from physical to transport, and then application, presentation, and session are usually, kind of collapsed into one. So again, what does the physical layer do, which is again layer one? See, layer one is raw transmission, right? What does that mean? Which means is this is where your zeros and ones, again, as we know, data is all zeros and ones. Physical can just be the medium. Now, again, if I'm using wireless for my medium, my wireless medium could be 5G, could be Wi-Fi, which we all use, 4G. And then data is where our physical addresses are. This is where our MAC addressing is, right? So MAC address, each device has a physical address which is burnt in, which cannot be changed. Network is, this is where you route your data, right? This is where you have a logical address, as we call it. And then we have transport, which is again where we live with our ports and stuff. What we have here is, what we have is something as simple as my port numbers, protocols like TCP, UDP, and then session is more like state of connection, right? So let's say if you log on to any website today, could be as simple as logging on to your banking website. Now, again, in your banking website, you're going through different tabs and trying to, maybe I'm paying my bill right now, or, I'm just checking status of my Visa bill or whatever that is. That website, your session is still on. You don't, when you click on each tab, it's not making you authenticate all the way again, right? So it's kind of maintaining that session. So that's really where the session layer comes in. Presentation is what kind of file am I using, right? Um, so what format is that file, or the data that I'm trying to work with? And application is where that human interaction really comes in. So this is again on a very high level that OSI model talks about. But the point is, this is where we start, and then we can start, kind of building on to other things. This is, I feel, there it becomes more, logical. So let's say if I have to kind of go now and quickly talk about and start talking about little more details on what kind of things does these things have, right? So let me kind of quickly bring my pen up here, and we'll talk about. So again, see, and we talk about physical, as I mentioned already. This is where your ones and zeros are, right? That's my physical transmission. Again, what kind of stuff can I have is I can have my Wi-Fi here, which is the most common, I would say, um, way of connecting today. Or we can have our cables, physical cables. If I was using cables, what would I use here? I would use, if I'm using copper cables, I'm using uh, cat cables, cat 5e, cat 6, and so on, or I'm using fiber, right? So that is my raw transmission. Physical addresses is, this is kind of where my MAC address lives, right? Uh, and again, this is my layers from starting from layer 1 to layer 7. Network is, this is where my IP addresses are, right? Uh, One more thing that we will answer in the future is, why do we have two addresses? We have physical addresses, then we have IP addresses. So this is something that we need to kind of, also understand very well. And then we start talking about the transport layer, right? Again, transport layer is where we have our TCP and UDP, which will break down again. 3CP, which we usually known as a connection-oriented protocol, which is famously has the three-way handshake, right? And then we have the UDP, which is more connectionless, again, used for fast, connectionless oriented applications. I would say, for example, if I'm trying to use it for voice, I would rather use UDP because I can just, quickly go from there. Uh, so that is on a very high level what these OSI model is gonna do for us, right? In the following videos, what I'll be doing is I'll be talking about what kind of protocols, or maybe what we can do is we can quickly touch upon what kind of protocols does the OSI model layer have. So once I know that, okay, which protocol is working on which layer, and then what kind of functions does it have, it will make our life much more easier when we're trying to understand on how these things kind of work together, right? Now, for example, if I'm talking about Ethernet or whichever those layers are, how they are working, right? So that is something that I want to kind of start talking about. So something, for example, is, as I said, physical. We had Wi-Fi. We could have things like even Bluetooth would kind of follow here. We would have Ethernet at the data, right? And then on the network layer, it's like we have, as I already mentioned, it's IP addresses. So IP, which is another interesting protocol that we can, dig into a little more deeper. What is ARP? That would be another thing that we will talk about in future, again in a small segment. ICMP, this is what helps us do, things like ping, things like trace route. So what are they used for? IPsec again, which is again some sort of security, but okay, what is that really doing for me, right? Um, and then at the presentation layer, something that we will also talk about is where the security starts to come in, right? Where things like what is SSL, what is TLS, those are the kind of things I would like to cover. But I just wanted to kind of give you that what kind of protocols do happen here, right? At each layer. Application layer would have things like, if we're doing browsing, like most of the cases it's HTTP, or is it HTTPS, or we have, DNS, again, a very common one, SNMP for management purposes. Again, if you think that the names that I'm taking here are not making sense, don't worry. I will be covering each one of them in a very, simple form, that how do they work. But for now, I just wanted you to understand that OSI model has 7 layers. Okay, that is what I want you to remember. It goes from physical layer up to the application layer, and one concept that I'll be introducing in the next video would be on encapsulation. So what does encapsulation mean is when I am trying to send a packet. So let's say if we have a sender here, like a laptop here, which is A, and he's sending it to B, right? Okay, now they can be connected via Wi-Fi or via a cable. How does it work? So that is something that I want to cover next time. Again, I'm not trying to cover it in this time, is just because I want to try and keep this one nice and sweet and short as promised. Okay, so again, uh, thank you. And again, as the time goes on, we'll try to uncover some of the more stuff that we have. Uh, and thanks for joining me in this journey. Can't wait to explore more different things. So again, stay curious, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next episode. Again, if you think that this is something that you like to see and it adds any value to you, so I would say go ahead and subscribe if you want, so that you can get some notifications once I upload a new video. I'm hoping that the quality of the videos will get better as I produce them. To be honest, again, this is my first time of doing it. No expert. I'm just doing it by myself, not professionally. So hopefully just intention is to add value to each one of you who's viewing it. Thank you again. Take care.